This is the informed consent document that the Unity Health Research Ethics Board requires that I begin each video with. I won't read the document, but you can pause the video to read it at your convenience. It's 3 pages long. This is the second page of the informed consent. Feel free to pause the video to read it. And this is the third and last page. Feel free to pause the video to read it. If you agree to participate in this research, please continue. If you don't agree, please feel free to leave the video at this point. Hello, and thank you for agreeing to participate in my research. I really appreciate it. My name is Jeff Braff, and I'm a Buddhist monk and chaplain here at St. Michael's Hospital. This video was developed as part of a research study investigating how Buddhist teachings can help frontline hospital staff effectively deal with the stresses and challenges of hospital work. This is the last of 3 short presentations that I've produced. In this presentation, we'll explore Buddhist-based practices that address compassion and, importantly, self-compassion, so important for us as healthcare workers. After viewing the presentation, I'll ask you to complete an anonymous survey about your reactions to it, as well as provide you with the information you'll need in order to complete an overall evaluation of the impact of the 3 videos and how they might impact your well-being. Okay, let's get started. As healthcare providers, we deal both with the suffering of others as well as our own suffering. This video will explore the concepts of compassion and self-compassion in how we address suffering of others and of ourselves, fundamental to Buddhist philosophy and meditative practice. In Buddhism, compassion is defined as the wish for others to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Self-compassion is our wish for ourselves to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Developing and maintaining a compassionate nature is critical in that it allows us to enhance our sensitivity toward the suffering of others to the point where we feel so moved by even their subtlest suffering that we come to have an overwhelming sense of responsibility toward those others, and that this sense of responsibility causes us to dedicate ourselves to helping others to overcome both their suffering and the causes of their suffering. This is what we do in healthcare. In Buddhism, this level of compassion is called ultimate compassion. Compassion is seen as a heartfelt outflowing of loving kindness and is the result of knowing that we are part of a greater whole and that we all are interdependent and connected to that greater whole. The Buddhist belief that all things are interconnected, that nothing exists of and in itself, is also referred to as ultimate reality. This interconnectedness has been described by the metaphor of Indra's net, Indra being a Vedic deity of ancient India. The scholar Francis Cook poetically describes this metaphor in this way. Far away in the heavenly abode of Indra, there's a wonderful net which has been hung in such a manner that it stretches out infinitely in all directions. A single glittering jewel has been hung at the net's every node, and since the net itself is infinite in dimension, the jewels are infinite in number. The jewels hang glittering like the brightest stars, a wonderful sight to behold. If we now select any one of these jewels for inspection and look closely at it, we'll discover that its polished surface reflects all the other jewels in the net, infinite in number. Not only that, but each of the jewels reflected in this one jewel is also reflecting all the other jewels, so that the process of reflection is also infinite. This symbolizes a cosmos in which there is an infinitely repeated interrelationship among all the members of the cosmos. This relationship is said to be one of simultaneous mutual identity and mutual intercausality. Cook's description perfectly describes the interrelationship that all beings have with each other, the ultimate reality of Buddhism, which allows us to meditate on the importance and benefits of compassion. Compassion known as karuna in Sanskrit, involves active sympathy and a willingness to bear the pain of others. It goes beyond mere empathy and extends to alleviating suffering wherever it appears. Historically, Buddhism has taught that beings enter the cycle of samsara, where they are born, live, die, and are reborn over many lifetimes until, by following the Four Noble Truths, which we spoke about in the two earlier videos, they reach enlightenment and leave samsara. The embodiment of compassion in classical Buddhism is the Bodhisattva, a being who over many lifetimes has reached the threshold of enlightenment and is able to enter into it. But rather than leave the cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth and enter into enlightenment, the Bodhisattva takes it upon himself or herself to remain in samsara with its attendant suffering in order to assist others to reach enlightenment. Now, I'm certainly not asking you to believe in rebirth or in multiple lifetimes, or even enlightenment as something that exists after this lifetime for that matter. But what I am asking you to do is to consider how being compassionate to others might benefit yourself. There's a very profound Tibetan Buddhist meditation on compassion, which you may choose to practice in a modified sort of way. In the original practice, the meditator is asked to consider that every person now alive has been his or her mother in a past lifetime or will be in a future one. I say practice in a modified sort of way because there's absolutely no need for you to believe in past or future lifetimes, but rather think about how your attitude toward people and their suffering would change if you regarded all people with the compassion and love that daughters and sons have for their mothers, and then you meditated and practice on being that compassionate to all other people. As we learned in the first video, compassion is one of the four immeasurables, the others being loving kindness, empathetic joy, and equanimity, positive qualities of heart and mind that can apply to all individuals and situations regardless of religious tradition. Meditating on compassion directly can only enhance your compassion. Buddhism defines self-compassion as treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a friend or a loved one. It's about not being hard on yourself, understanding and accepting yourself, and caring about your own well-being. In psychology, radical acceptance is acknowledging and honoring difficult situations and emotions. In Buddhism, this is sometimes called accepting things as they are, which doesn't mean you must be complacent. It means when we're at the crossroads, taking the path where what needs to be addressed is done so without blame, denial, or self-judgment. This brings us back to self-compassion. Accepting ourselves with compassion and kindness means letting go of the blame and the baggage. Buddhism encourages us to care for others, but taking care of others requires us to take care of ourselves. By treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, we can work through the emotional wounds and develop healthier relationships with ourselves and with others. And our relationships will be grounded in honesty and stability. As healthcare providers, we know this to be true, but we sometimes find it difficult to put this into practice. I've spoken about how Buddhism emphasizes interconnectedness and acknowledges that suffering is intrinsic to human existence. Self-compassion recognizes that our distress is shared by others. Self-compassion involves accepting ourselves with kindness without blame or self-judgment. Reiterating, Buddhist teaching tells us that compassion involves being open to and moved by the suffering of others, so that we desire to ease their suffering by offering others patience, kindness, and non-judgmental understanding. Recognizing that all humans are imperfect, self-compassion involves being open to and moved by our own suffering, experiencing feelings of caring and kindness towards ourselves, taking an understanding approach, recognizing that our own experience is part of the common human experience. For those of us in Western society, and especially for those of us working in healthcare, this has been difficult to do. Research has shown that self-compassion is significantly and independently associated with perceived happiness in healthcare workers. One research study highlighted the relationship between non-judgmental awareness of one's emotions, mindfulness, and increased happiness, suggesting that being mindful in your emotions through mindfulness practices has the potential to decrease stress and increase empathy and self-compassion. So, how do we practice self-compassion through meditation? The Sanskrit word for loving kindness is metta. Buddhist tools for self-compassion include metta meditation, an exercise which begins by offering loving kindness to ourselves. Recall the guidelines for meditating mentioned in the previous video. Begin by finding a quiet place where you can initially focus on your breath. You can do this as a sitting or walking meditation. Count each breath for the first 10 or so. After that, focus on the breath and not on the counting. Then think of something in your life that's difficult, that's causing you stress. Call the situation to mind. What's going on? Who said what? Really bring the situation to life in your mind's eye. See if you can actually feel the stress and emotional discomfort in your body. What I'd like you to try doing is say a series of phrases that are designed to help you to remember the components of self-compassion when you need it the most. Tell yourself, this is a moment of suffering. Bringing mindful awareness to the fact that suffering is present, find some language that speaks to you. It may be something like, this hurts. This is really hard now. I'm really struggling. I'm scared. This is stressful. You're actually turning toward your difficulty right now and acknowledging it and naming it. This is a moment of suffering. Then tell yourself, suffering is part of my life. This phrase is reminding us of our common humanity. Suffering is a part of life. And again, find language that speaks to you. It may be something like, other people feel this way with different degrees and expressions of suffering, but we all suffer. Suffering is part of living. It's not abnormal to feel this way. We all struggle in our lives. I'm not alone. Then think, may I be kind to myself. To support this phrase, put your hands over your heart or some other place on your body that feels soothing and comforting. Feel the warmth of your hands and your gentle touch. Let those feelings of care stream through your fingers into your being. Then say to yourself, may I be kind to myself, or choose another phrase that supports that sense of kindness. Perhaps language you would use with a dear friend or a loved one who is going through a very difficult situation. It may be something like, I'm here for you. You're not alone. I care about you. I love you. You can also ask yourself, what do I need to hear right now to express kindness to myself? Is there a phrase that speaks to you in your particular situation? It may be something like, may I give myself the compassion that I need. May I learn to accept myself as I am. May I forgive myself. May I be strong. May I be patient. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be at ease. Take a few deep breaths, letting go of the practice and noticing how your body feels, allowing any sensations to be just as they are, allowing yourself to be just as you are in this moment of self-compassion and kindness. This practice can be used at any time and will help you remember to evoke the three aspects of self-compassion. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of my life. And may I be kind to myself when you need it the most. You might find it helpful to go over this part of the video a number of times as you practice meditative self-compassion. You can do this practice by yourself. You can facilitate a self-compassion break with your team as a supportive healing practice. You can use this to start or finish your day. If you feel comfortable doing so, you can also offer and lead this meditative practice as part of a staff debrief after a difficult work-related situation. This concludes the video on compassion and self-compassion. May the blessings of the Buddha be on you and those whom you love as you practice compassion for yourself and others. Thank you so very much for viewing this last of the 3 videos and for participating in my research. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me anonymously at my phone number or through my hospital email, which would not be anonymous. If you click on the link, you'll be taken to a survey about this video. At the end of that survey, you'll find another link that will take you to yet another survey that I'd ask you to fill out in a few weeks after you've had an opportunity to practice the meditative techniques we've discussed. These surveys are all anonymous. Thank you again for participating in my research. I hope you found these videos to be both informative and helpful.